Welcome to Political Perspectives. I'm Hugo Gurdon, Editor-in-Chief of The Washington Examiner. If you're joining us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. I am joined today again by Byron York, the Chief Political Correspondent of The Washington Examiner. And Byron, the Democrats have been meeting in Minneapolis. They're a bit of a sad sack party right now. They are not very popular. Talk a little bit about the depths from which they are trying to climb out.
Yeah, they're really in a pretty deep hole. First of all, you remember the poll not too long ago from the Wall Street Journal showing that in terms of voter approval, the Democrats are at their lowest point in 35 years. More recently, there was an article in the New York Times talking about the states that record voter registration by party. And they found there are 30 states that do that. And they found that Democrats had lost ground to Republicans in every single one of those 30 states in the last 4 years. Obviously, they're coming out on the wrong side of a few issues, specifically immigration and crime. And the last thing is, in the money race, with the Republican Party, the Democrats have about $15 million in cash on hand. This was at the end of June, and the Republicans have 80. So 80 beats 15.
Sure does.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So the Democrats are trying to run up an escalator that's moving fast downwards. One of to switch metaphors here, Ken Martin, the party chairman, said that the Democrats had been bringing a pencil to a knife fight. This is I suppose, his idea that somehow or other Democrats have been not playing as dirty or as mean as Republicans. To a lot of people, I think to a lot of our viewers, this will seem like an outlandish suggestion. What do you make of that?
Well, it sounded that way to me. I mean, you're right. After all the problems I just listed, there are some Democrats who feel the biggest problem of the party is that they are being too nice to President Trump. And, look, any Republican would say, well, there was a span of a few months in 2023 in which Democratic prosecutors filed 91 felony charges against President Trump, then former President Trump. There was the Democratic Attorney General's effort to destroy his business empire, which made a lot of progress, now getting overturned in New York State. There was the effort by state attorneys general to use the 14th Amendment to declare him ineligible for office, and a lot more that we call, put under the big topic of lawfare. So I think the idea that Democrats have been too nice to the president is just kind of nuts. I will say, have you ever heard the phrase "bringing a pencil to a knife fight"?
No, I haven't.
Isn't it the phrase? It's usually bringing a knife to a gunfight, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so I don't think the Democrats wanted to be on record as favoring having guns.
Right.
So they change it a little bit and say, oh, it was like bringing a pencil to a knife fight, which sounds kind of odd, but you get the idea.
Yeah. So what it sounds like is, if they're just emphasizing the extent to which they need to be aggressive and mean and fight back in the way that they suggest that the Republicans are fighting, that's all about the way in which they fight, not the things that they are fighting over. Is there any indication that they are actually looking at some of the policies that made them so unpopular? You mentioned immigration, you mentioned inflation, etc. Are there any ways in which they are saying, we got that wrong, let's change that policy?
That is a great question. Obviously, it's the substance versus style question, and the answer is no, not really, because what you find when a party is off track, and certainly on some issues, the Democrats are off track, you'll find a number when they're actually in the wrong place on policy issues, like they're on the wrong place in illegal immigration, they're actually on the wrong place on crime. You'll find a number of people in the party who say what they really have is a messaging problem. Their positions are good. As a matter of fact, their positions are shared by the majority of Americans. They just
Right.
have a communications problem. So Democrats are in that stage right now.
Yeah. It,
And
it,
in a minute, I will say there's a case that things are going to get better for them.
mhm.
But right now, they really ought to be examining the substance of their positions.
So before we get on to how it might get better for them, uh, is there also, let me ask you, something about the fact of that period when you're out of power and you've just lost election or elections and you really have no levers of power in your grip, whatever,
Yeah.
where, as it were, ordinary people, the public who might be Democrats, they kind of go away and they're not as active anymore. They kind of lose a bit of interest. They just go and get on with
Yeah.
their lives. The people who stay really active are the activists, and the
Yeah.
activists are more extreme. So they have a much more vested interest in the extreme policies, whether it be wokeism, the trans agenda, whether it's Palestine, whether it's, you know, socialism in its various forms. And that's perhaps why we're seeing, for Mandami in New York, and isn't it the case that when the party is out of power, it's the activists, the more extreme people, who are actually shaping things rather than anyone who has a remote chance of being elected as a national leader?
Well said. That's exactly what's taking place because there is no leader of the Democratic Party. When a party does not control the White House, does not control the House, does not control the Senate, it has no leader. And in that vacuum, what happens is exactly what you said, which is that the voices out on the fringe are usually the loudest voices, the most passionate voices. They get the most attention. And that's exactly what's happening now, which is exactly the wrong thing to be happening for Democrats right now. Now,
Yeah.
if they win control of the House, they'll have a Speaker of the House. Now, that's not a leader like a president is, but it'll clearly be the senior Democrat in the party, and perhaps then they can actually get a little leadership.
So let's just talk briefly about those leaders as our kind of final thought. I mean, you mentioned recently what Gavin Newsom is doing. You talked a
Mm.
bit about J.B. Pritzker. Both men would like to be president, and we can assume that they will throw their hats into the ring at some point for the 2028 presidential election. They have been going to their own extremes, haven't they? Somewhat different extremes. Talk a little bit about what they've been doing to raise their profile.
You know, I kind of hate to say this, but they've been kind of clownish, is what they've been doing. Is that obviously Newsom decided to lead this redistricting fight in California to counter what was being done in Texas. That's probably for the party a bad idea, but there are a lot of Democrats who say, well, at least he's fighting.
Right.
On the other side of what Newsom is doing, he's turned himself into kind of a Trump troll, and
Hmm.
he posts a lot on Twitter in a mock Trump style, like your favorite governor, Gavin C. Newsom, quite
Right.
good looking, and thank you for your attention to this matter. So he's doing that, and so is that going to work? I don't know. And then Pritzker is actually one of the more pugilistic of the Democratic candidates, and
Hmm.
he is fond of calling the president a Nazi. So he's in
Right.
kind of that category.
Yeah.
Now, is that going to work? I don't know. But right now, Democrats seem to be the ones who are, to refer to what you said before, the ones who are paying most attention now seem to be looking for the leader who's the most strident against
Yeah.
Trump.
Yeah. There's a kind of dichotomy here, and this is, I suppose, the last thing that I will get to, and that is they think that what they're trying to do. I mean, Gavin Newsom very obviously he looks at Trump, and a lot of Democrats have been look at Trump, and they say there's something kind of outlandish. He's rather extraordinary in the way he behaves. He has these amazing sort of social media posts. We've got to be more
Yeah.
like that. But what they
Yeah.
miss about Trump, and this goes back to their policy, is that Trump puts those very unusual and to some people distasteful political skills to the service of an agenda which seems to people to recognize their real concerns. They're people who feel that they have been left behind by the society. The Democrats, by not changing policy, but just trying to do a kind of turn themselves into Trump light, or I don't know, they're to mimicking him and being more extreme, are just doing, again, appearances rather than reality. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely correct. Look, Trump is a showman. I mean, he had a very popular program on television for a long time. And so he's a real showman, but the showmanship is in service of an actual agenda, of an
Right.
actual policy agenda. He really did fix the problem at the border. He really is taking on crime now in the city of Washington and across the country. So
Right.
those are real things. And so you're right. If you're just doing the style, and if you're just kind of parodying
Right.
Trump, and what Newsom is doing is, maybe some of our viewers will remember back in the at the late George W. Bush era, Stephen Colbert started a TV show in
Hmm.
which he stayed in character, and he was supposedly a kooky right winger on
Hmm.
Fox News.
Hmm.
And so he did the whole show in character, of course, making fun of the right and of conservatives, and it was very popular for a while. That's kind of what Newsom is doing now.
Hmm.
Um, I will say that, Colbert's about to be off the air and Fox is doing extremely well. So make of
Yeah.
that what you will.
Yeah.
But Newsom is just I don't know, he's a little clownish at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think that people are going to be particularly impressed by his mimicry of the shooting at Butler and holding up a bottle of
Oh,
ketchup. It doesn't
no.
seem like in good taste. People did on social media say, somebody died at that. Anyway, that's where we'll
Yep.
leave it, Byron. Thanks very much for joining me on the show, and thank you all for joining us. Join us again next time on Political Perspectives.